Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Alina Maryles Haitz about turning chaos into calm and addressing workplace inclusion efforts. Alina Maryles Haitz, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time amidst all of this craziness. I know everyone's very busy, but it's a pleasure to have the chance to meet and really just chat with you in the pre-interview to discuss, things and get ready. And you have a great, interesting background. I'm excited to have some interesting discussion with you today. As we get started, I just want to share a little bit of a background of Alina with the listeners. Alina Maryles Haitz is an experienced inclusive leader, author, and keynote speaker with demonstrated history of working in higher education, leadership development, digital communication strategy, and strong corporate training background. She has a mindful leadership style with a passion to disrupt the status quo in our current world. And I share that passion. That sometimes can get us into a little bit of trouble, can't it? But I think it's good to be a disruptor and to challenge thinking, particularly when it comes to bias and prejudice and broken systems and things like that need to be addressed. So I really appreciate that. And you have with 15 plus years in the higher ed space and a variety of different roles, and now in the consulting space and doing implicit bias, anti-racism, anti-harassment, mindfulness, leadership types of work, you're doing a lot of really great, meaningful work that's going to help a lot of people. So I think that's really, really cool. It looks like you were born and raised in New York, and I know you're going to talk and share with the listeners a little bit about your own disability that you're dealing with and how that relates to the current COVID context and kind of the broader mental health issues surrounding that. So I look forward to that also. Before we really dive on in today for our discussion, anything else you would like to add by way of background for the listeners?
Sure. I always get a little laugh. My mother is Puerto Rican, but she is from Manhattan. My father is born and raised on Long Island, where I currently live. So just to paint the picture, he came from a Hasidic Jewish family. He wasn't Hasidic, he was modern. So my father is a Long Islander. I just like to add a little comedy to that. So I was raised Catholic. So I am, according to government standards, a minority woman with a disability. So I just wanted to paint that picture so that your audience knows who's speaking. I do look Greek, and some people think because I'm from Long Island that I am Italian, which I am not. And I'm working on being speaking Spanish fluently so I can, join the human race of the globe and not just be so American and only speak English. So I'm working on Spanish. So that's a little background stuff because I know your audience, your followers don't really know what I look like or who I am, and I am a puzzle piece.
Oh, great. Thank you. And yeah, that really is a uniquely American thing, isn't it? That we're like so insular and like we just speak English. I mean, there are people that speak other languages, but when you go around the world, pretty much every other place around the world, people speak multiple languages.
And the funny thing is America really doesn't have a universal language because we're founded by immigrants. So technically, yes, most of us or a lot of us speak English, but there really is no, it's not like you go to, a certain country and their universal language Spanish. We actually technically don't have, I mean, unless the government has changed something that I don't know about, I think we're pretty open here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good. Thank you for that background. And we really do share interests and experience, in the higher ed space and consulting, and work with inclusion and diversity and belonging and related types of topics. So I think it should be a lot of fun. And today, I think we'll be framing our discussion around turning chaos into calm. So amidst this global pandemic, on the one hand, but then on the other hand, we have this tumultuous racial social context with the Black Lives Matters movement and George Floyd moment. And we just, in June we had that Pride Month. And I mean, it's an election year, so there's lots of tension, lots of concern, lots of anxiety, lots of stress. It's a tumultuous time. And so I look forward to picking your brain about like what sense can we make out of all of this? And there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And how can we as individuals and how can we as organizational leaders put our best foot forward to make this as manageable as possible, and to make sure that our people are given an opportunity to thrive and succeed.
And I think it's really important. The word that you said is an opportunity to thrive and to succeed. A lot of us, because we're human beings, we have been through our own, let's say, personal pandemics. So, I mean, regardless of where you come from or what you've experienced in life, no matter what, we all have had struggles. And I think that this global pandemic has actually, in some ways, served us because we're all in the same boat. It doesn't have to be the Titanic. We can embrace this opportunity to slow down and perhaps meditate or be more calm or talk to that person that you just haven't spoken to in a while, because we're all experiencing this shift. And regardless if it's career, work, life balance, we are all in it together. The whole world. I'm on the East Coast. It's not like it's an East Coast thing, right? This is not a UK thing. This is a world issue. Everybody is dealing with this differently. And I never consider, you had mentioned, and I had mentioned that I have a disability, and my disability is something that I have been self-stigmatizing for a long time. So just a little background, 2 days before 9/11, I am from New York. I was at Penn State University studying advertising, and I started having like a little bit of like panic, anxiety, racing thoughts. They really weren't sure what was going on. And my father came all the way from New York, Jewish, good father, I was definitely a disruptor at 21. He came and picked me up and he said, something's not right. I was hospitalized and I was diagnosed. At the time, they were calling it manic depression. And it was really a newer term. I mean, if you speak to a kid now that's 21, everybody knows what bipolar is. So when I speak about bipolar, I'm coming from a place of I've been living through bipolar disorder. I don't identify myself as bipolar, or I live with bipolar every day. So I have had my own personal pandemics, being hospitalized, having situations, and it is a diversity situation. I'm not just a minority woman. I am actually in a protected class of the ADA. ADA protects me because I have a disability, and it is a severe disability, and I find it more of a brain health situation. So when I think about the pandemic and I think about people having anxiety, check. I think about people having depression, check. I think about people having racing thoughts because they can't focus, ADHD thoughts, check. So mental health a lot of times is something that people like to overlook, and I'm sure you as a professional educator, you have a very fine understanding of, a lot of people have quote unquote breakdowns. It's really more of a, let's slow it down, let's get perspective. And I do believe that's what this pandemic is doing. It's forcing us. Mother Nature has forced us, science has forced us to slow down.
Yeah, and hopefully we can approach it, with a half glass full, let's make these um, obstacles into stepping stones, all the cliche metaphors. Let's take that approach to dealing with these challenges. And I don't say that to diminish, I'm not trying to downplay the challenge and the stress and the anxiety and everything that's associated with what people are going through. But we do have a chance to choose how we respond to the
Absolutely.
challenges, and hopefully we can take this as an opportunity to quiet our mind, do some self-reflection, and consider where we've been, where we're going, and perhaps if there's changes that should be made so that we can be in a healthier place, to find success in our own lives.
It's really interesting. I was having, I think a lot of people are having trouble with anxiety, especially, those who are not used to being home all the time and raising children, teaching children during the school year. Multiple responsibilities, lots of stress. If you're used to a cleaning lady, you're not going to have a cleaning lady, right, during COVID. At least I didn't. So I'm just giving examples of like life has really altered. And it is about choice, but at the same time, it's about just taking it one day at a time, because we really don't even know what's happening with the school system, and for us in eastern part of the country. So it's really staying in the moment. And I'm not a big like let's namaste at work, because I think that a lot of people get turned off where let's take a spiritual approach and I'm all about spirituality, and I enjoy metaphysics, and I'm a Catholic, and I am not a Catholic some days. And so this is not about, to me, religion. Mindfulness is about functionality. And even right before, I said this at another podcast, before I go into a meeting and I'm stressed out because I just got a call from my son's school, it's about take a deep breath and let me hear you. Let me actively listen to what you're saying. And I do think that that will serve our future generations in the workplace. And it will help us all as a community. You're an educator. I'm sure you see the children, the students that grew up with the cell phone. I mean, they're addicted. They cannot enter the elevator without checking their TikTok. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing as we talk about generational differences, as we think about um, the different contexts people find themselves in. I'm in a state that hasn't taken the coronavirus as seriously as, say, back in New York, and so things have stayed fairly open, and we continue to spike. And we have a good number of kind of COVID deniers that are around here, people, anti-maskers, people who refuse to wear masks, all while we're trying to like keep people safe and open the economy, but also the schools, and do that in a healthy way, right? It's just a challenge, and some people are by themselves, other people are in family groups, to keep each other company, lots of self-isolation. It's just everyone's situation is a little bit different, and so I think we all need to be patient with ourselves, and making sure that we focus on self-care, and recognizing that this is unprecedented times, and we can take it, like you said, take it one day at a time as we try to figure out how to best move forward. As we think about, or go ahead, it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
I 100% agree with that. And everyone has a different way of coping. My way of coping is definitely, before this interview, I just popped on a quick meditation. I think that the tools we have that weren't working for us, okay, let's adjust and let's find what does work. And sometimes it's just simply taking a deep breath and slowing down our tone and our voice at a meeting. So, and the positivity, yes, but also meeting ourselves where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
some people are not going to be able to calm themselves down if they are so up here and they're not. So I think it's all about, also about like acceptance and knowing that, okay, this is where I live. Maybe these people are not taking the precautions that I would take, but that doesn't mean that I have to follow their suit. I always say this to clients of mine, and it sounds really dark, and it's the truth. You come into this world alone and you do leave alone. We have to take care of ourselves. To me, it goes like higher power, higher authority, God, Buddha, whatever you want to call it. Then it goes you, and then it goes everybody else, family, children, relationships. So if we can, if in my opinion, if we can really take, it's about self-care. A lot of this is self-preservation, self-care. If we're putting work above our own self-care, we are going to tumble in a pandemic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit. It's related
Sure.
because of the broader context of kind of the racial angst and the protests and the Black Lives Matters movement. But you do a lot of work with implicit bias, training, diversity and inclusion, harassment, prejudice, those sorts of topics. I'm wondering, like, what is your go-to approach when working with organizations that are interested in trying to tackle these issues? They want to know how to better, a leader brings you in because they want to know how to do this better. They want to know how to support their people better. But the natural response from a lot of people who, particularly those who are maybe like me, a middle-aged white guy, I'm not a minority. I have a lot of privilege. And a lot of times, people aren't particularly comfortable acknowledging their privilege. They're not comfortable, and their defenses go up if people start to talk about privilege, or they start to talk about bias or prejudice or those sorts of things. They say, I'm not racist, so this doesn't apply to me. How do you go in and break down those barriers and help leaders and the average employee start to make positive steps towards inclusive mindset and working more effectively with a diverse workforce?
So as you said in the beginning, which is funny because I never love the word, but I'll take it. You said I'm a disruptor, which is 100% true. I don't put it on my LinkedIn profile because I'm afraid. I'm just not totally sure if I want to be labeled as anything at all. I actually hate labels. So that's what I do with organizations. My job is to break barriers. If that means disrupting, then that means disrupting. So when I go into an organization, I do my research and I say, like, I want the EEO. I want the I want the numbers. Give me the diversity numbers. Give me, I'm gonna stand up for this. Give me the breakdown. Who is there? Where are they from? What is the demo? What's happening? What's the situation? And I would do an assessment, almost like a needs assessment, like a nice little 1, 2, 3 questionnaire. What's happening here? Why are you bringing me in? Is it anti-harassment? Then let's address it. It always comes down to core values. Always comes down to core values. The thing is, see, I grew up with a mother who spoke Spanish in her household and a Jewish father who knows how to say "aquí" when we went to Spain. Okay, so I was blessed. I actually grew up with what the privileges of people thinking I was white. I grew up in a neighborhood that was basically Jewish, Italian, and a bunch of other things, maybe a token white person here and there. I mean, a token black person here and there. What I learned, and especially in 2020, I worked for Walt Disney World as a performer because I'm a performer at heart. And what I learned there is that we all have, and I learned this through my parents, my upbringing, and work playing in sports, is that we all are the same. We just, whoever created us made us the way we are for a reason. And how I take that and transition that into a meeting with a bunch of, let's say, quote unquote, white privileged men, because, we are in a patriarch society and that has nothing to do with men, it has everything to do with society. Don't make me go there. Okay. It's not a feminist issue, anti-harassment or Me Too. It's a societal issue. Okay. So what I say is, do you go to the bathroom? Yes. Do you drink water? Yes. Do you pee? Okay, so we all have something in common. When I go to Spain, you and I have something in common, right? Even though I'm a Puerto Rican, you raised Catholic, and blah, 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 my story, my narrative. We're both American. Well, I'm assuming that you were born in America. Wait a minute. So when America has an issue, because we're the youngest country, this one of the strongest countries, depending on who you ask, we're based on immigration. So the anti-whatever is really a core value of civility, is a really core value of humanity. It's less about you being Black, less about you being a man, less about you being this, more about being kind. Choose kindness. I worked with an organization called kindness.org. Look, I believe that there's institutional issues across the board, 100%. But remember, how were we founded as a country? They were disruptors. Hello. Don't tell me George Washington wasn't a disruptor.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I want to tell you something funny, and this is going to shed some light. I have a 5-year-old son. He has blue eyes and blonde hair. His name is, I won't say his name, okay, but blue eyes. He's 5 years old, very bright little boy. My husband is from Pennsylvania, and we're very different. He's blue eyes, but we make it work, right? So I said to him, I showed him a picture of Martin Luther King. He was on the cover. And I said, who is this? And you know what he said to me? George Washington. He knew I was a leader. He just didn't know which one, because that is something that is nurtured. It's not like you are born racist or implicitly biased. It's what you learn in childhood and in your community and what you're used to. When I went to school in the middle of Pennsylvania, they started calling me a Yankee. I'm like, a Yankee? They're like, you are so New York. I'm like, really? Of course I am. I'm from Long Island. Joey Buttafuoco was from Massapequa. I mean, like, remember that? So of course, label me all you want. It doesn't matter. I'm still a human being. I still go to the park. And that's an issue that people always have had with me, is that they're like, they don't get me. They're like, what is that about? So when I go to a meeting and I go to an office and they would like me to talk, I come in there, I wear my suit and I talk, and they all have a judgment and a list of things of who I am from the assumptions they make of Alina Maryles Haitz. What is that last name? Is she from New York? Does she think she knows everything? And then all of a sudden, then we get real. And that's what I do with organizations. I keep it positive, I get real, and I meet the organization where they're at. I'm gonna act differently if I go into an organization, let's say Starbucks, big on social responsibility, versus maybe a more conservative organization. Okay, and then we have to think about generations. If I'm talking to traditionalists or baby boomers, or am I talking to iGen? And they have a different attention span than, let's say, my parents. So we have to know, I studied marketing. We have to know who we're talking to. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's a lot of psychology.
Yeah. So interesting. And it is challenging. It's challenging work, but we can make a difference. We can start to disrupt the broken systems and replace them with better functioning systems. We can start to disrupt our unproductive thought patterns and replace them with more productive thought patterns. But we have to do it intentionally. We have to be mindful. We have to be willing to accept, none of us are perfect. We all, we can give each other benefit of the doubt in terms of our intentions, but ultimately it's not our intentions that matter. It's what we do, say, and how we impact others. And so we can make positive, baby steps forward to make improvement if we're just willing to acknowledge that maybe we have some blind spots and we have something to work on. Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
I just want to say, you don't know what you don't know. And I appreciate what you just said. I really do. You just don't know what you don't know. And being open and willing is huge.
Yeah. Well, we are about out of time. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Before we go, I want to make sure you have a chance to share with the listeners how they can find out more about you, get connected, find more about your consulting work if they're interested in connecting to have you come and do some inclusion types of work with their organization.
Sure, thank you. I can be found at Alina, ALINAR Haitz, HAITZ.com. That website's focused on coaching busy women professionals, women that are busy. However, I do lots of trainings. I'm working to continue doing that virtually. So I'm always open to opportunities, and I really look forward to speaking to anyone that has a question for me about anything we discussed today. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I encourage my listeners to reach out to Alina. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, and I hope everyone stays healthy and safe and have a wonderful week.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.